All right, this is page 3 of lesson 1.1 on signed numbers. And so we're going to continue on, but we're going to take a look at a situation called a double negative. Now, in order for it to be a double negative, the negatives have to be one right after another. So a negative followed by another negative. Another way that usually looks is you'll have a negative and then like a parenthesis followed by a negative. But notice, no numbers are in between. So in order for it to be a double negative, there can't be a number in between it. And so I just want to be real careful with that. Because sometimes I run into that issue where if you see something like -3 minus 2, somebody might think that's a double negative, and it's not. Because both numbers are negative, or we treat them as negatives, but the negative does not the second negative is not right after the first. There's a number in between. And so that's why this is not a double negative. So I want to consider these three problems. Now, if we consider a number line, 5 would start here, right? And +2 would send us to the right 2 units. So we'd go 1 and we'd go 2, and that would put us at 7. So the answer here is 7. But what if I have 5 minus 2? So we'll put a dot here where the 5 is. And then if the minus 2 means we would be going in the left direction because we're decreasing. So you'd go 1, 2, and that would leave us at 3. But what about this one? So there's 2 negatives, right? And so how do we treat that? And so we're still going to start at 5. Now this negative would tell us to go in this direction, and this negative would then tell us to switch directions. So really a negative has you flip directions, has you go the other way. So with the 5, this negative has us looking this way, and then this negative flips us back over this way. So this actually winds up having us go 2 in the positive direction, which is a 7. So a double negative, they really wind up canceling themselves. One way I've thought about trying to explain this is the first negative would tell you which way to face, and the second negative would tell you which way to walk. So if we put the person here at 5, I'm going to draw the person here, but the first one, so we have 5, that's our location. The first negative would have us face this direction. So we're facing this way. I'll put a little I there. Okay, so the person is facing this direction. But the second negative then tells them to walk backwards. 1, 2. So the first negative is the facing direction, and then this tells you to walk backwards. If you think of it this one, like this one, this would tell you you can either use it to get it to face this direction and then walk 2, or you could get it to face this direction and walk backwards. You have to do one or the other, right? And so that negative could be treated either way. So if I have somebody use the negative to face this direction, then the person would walk in that direction. But if I used it to, say, walk backwards, so here I'm at 5, and now this says I'm not going to use it to face negative. I'm staying this direction, but then I'm going back 2. And so the double negative has you do both, and that's why it sends you forward. All right. Easy way to do this is to remember when you see this situation with the double negative, you just treat it as a positive. So the step I would do with this type of equation is I would just make it 5 plus 2. I would change that double negative into a positive and then do the math. So I want you to go and try these problems. So when you see the double negatives, change them to positives, and then calculate whether it's a war or an alliance and find the answer. Okay, so I'm hoping you paused your video and worked through those problems. And so I will go over them now. For this first one here, clearly double negative, no number in between. So I'm just going to change this to a 4 plus 1. One thing that I've seen students do which I think is kind of a neat, a nice, easy thing, is when they see the double negatives, they'll actually just connect these lines and make a big positive out of it, right? Because that's really what we're doing. And 4 plus 1 is an alliance, both positives, so it's an alliance of positives. Your answer is 5. All right, for your next one, I see double negatives again, right? So once again, I'm going to change this to a positive 4. This is still a negative 2. I didn't do anything with this. These negatives become a positive. This negative stays the same. Now looking at it, this is a war. Who wins? Well, looking at it, looks like the positives are going to win. There are more positives than negatives. So the answer is positive. And then when I compare, like I've had them fight out, 2 of these negatives cancel 2 of these positives, which would leave 2 positives left over. And now this one. Not a double negative. So just wanted to remind you, it's not a double negative unless there's no number in between. And here, there is a 3 in between the first negative and this other one here. So that is not a double negative. This would be an alliance of negatives, so your answer would be negative 5, but it's not a double negative. All right, so we've done alliances, we've done wars, and we've discussed double negatives. I would like you to go ahead and go through these problems here. Go ahead and solve them. So pause your video, work through those 6, and then unpause, and I'll go over them. Okay, so hopefully you're finished with those problems. I'm going to go ahead and start going through. Number 1, there's a double negative right there. Negative followed by another negative, no number in between. So we're just going to change this to a plus. Now it's an alliance of positives. 2 plus 2 is 4. We'll go to the next one. No double negatives, right? These negatives are not next to each other. There's a number in between. So the question is this a war or an alliance? If you said alliance, you were correct. This is an alliance of negatives. Both numbers are negative. So they're going to team up together, and you're going to have a total of 11 negatives. We'll go to the next one. Is this an alliance or a war? Well, it looks like a war to me. You have a positive 8 and a negative 7, so they are going to fight it out. 7 of these negatives cancel 7 of these positives. Positives win, but only 1 positive will be left. Lone survivor. For the next one, there is a double negative here, so hopefully you saw that. We'll change that into a plus. So now we have negative 8 plus 6. Is that a war or an alliance? Well, they're different signs, right? Negatives versus positives. So that is definitely a war. Who's going to win? Positives or negatives? Well, there are more negatives than positives, so the negatives are going to win. If 6 of these positives take out 6 of these negatives, how many negatives would be left? It would be 2. All right, next one. Alliance or war? If you said war, you were correct. It's positive 11, and it's a negative 4. So they're going to fight it out. Positives win because 11 is more than 4, right? So you have more positives than negatives. And if you do the subtraction, there will be 7 positives left over. And then for our last one here, if you saw the double negative, you can just make this 48 plus 31. And then we would just combine those together. That is 7, and the 8 plus 1 is 9, so 79. All right. Next thing we did in class is we did a group activity. So students were given cards with different problems on them, and they had to separate them by whether they thought it was a war or an alliance, or if it had a double negative. Because you can't determine whether it's a war or an alliance until you figure that piece out. So I'm going to go ahead and lay down. These are the same ones that they would have seen. So we'll go through those real quick. Yep, I think that's right. There we go. Yeah. Zoom that out a little bit more. There we go. There we go. Okay. Make that a little higher. Okay, hopefully you can see those all right. I try to make them nice and big. I think I'm going to turn the light off for this one. It's not as bright. All right, so for these, let's go and start with some of the simpler ones. So all we need to do is identify whether it's a war, an alliance, or whether you have a double negative. And if it has a double negative, we're going to put those in a separate category. So let's start with some of the smaller ones. This one here. -4 plus 5, is it a war or an alliance? All right, if you said war, that's correct. I'm going to put the wars up here in the top right. I'm going to move this one down here. We'll deal with that one later. It's kind of a big one. This one here, is that a war or an alliance? Well, if you said war, you'd be correct. Interesting about this problem, it works the same upside down. All right, let's do this one. Is this an alliance or a war? That also looks like a war to me. All right, good. Let's take a look at this one. Is that an alliance or a war? All right, if you said alliance, you're correct. It is an alliance of negatives, right? So they would combine together. What about this one? Alliance or war? Oh, there was a third category, wasn't it? This is a double negative. So we'll have to deal with this here in a second. I'm going to set that down here at the bottom. And we'll deal with those in a second. All right, so this one here. -4 minus 4, is that a war or an alliance? Right, if you said an alliance, you'd be correct, so we'll put that over here. This problem, war or an alliance? Yep, I agree, this is also an alliance. In fact, all three of these are alliances of negatives. All right, we go to the next one. What do you think? If you said double negative, I agree. We're going to set this right down here. We'll deal with that in a minute. That problem? If you said war, you were correct. Negatives versus positives. So we'll put this over here with the war. All right, for this one here, what do you think? If you said it's a double negative, you were correct, so I'm going to move that right there. And then we have this one. Well, this has 3 values in it, doesn't it? So which one do we think it is? Well, they're all negatives, aren't they? -5 plus a -1 plus a -4. This would be an alliance of negatives. So we're going to put up here with the alliances. And now we have to sort through these 3. So for these 3 problems, we have to decide, is this, put this down just a little bit. Apologize, there's a little bit of glare coming out of here. Can I want to make sure I have the slide off. Okay, that's the best I can do. I apologize. Looking at this first one, if this is a double negative, we would make it into a big plus, right? So then we would have 3 plus 6. So that would make it an alliance of positives. So that would stay there. I'm going to turn off the light. Give me 1 second. Hey, I think that's a little bit better. I just turned off one of the lights. I think it's just showing up a little bit better. All right, we have 2 more to go. What about this one? What do you think? Well, there's definitely double negatives here and double negatives here. So these would become a positive, and these would become a positive. So you'd actually have 3 plus 4. This would be an alliance of positives once you change the signs. And for the last one here, this is also a double negative, so this becomes a plus 3. So if we have a -5 and a plus 3, that would be a war. And so we talked about those, and each student got a set of cards to work and then compare with their neighbors. So that was the activity that we did. All right. So that is the end of page 3. So I'm going to go ahead and have you go on to the last video for this lesson, which is page 4.